Welcome to this Roundup. Biometrics is taking over traditional identity practices and is now commonly accepted as a proven way of identification and authentication by nations and all its components. There are reports emerging that biometric practices are already being implemented by nations and its governments for national identity applications. So, as nations begin applying biometric technology for managing identity, the question arises as to what is at risk and who is at risk. The reason behind that is biometrics technology is also a very powerful enabler of mass surveillance. Now, just like any other technology and system, biometric system also has its own limitations. Now, when any implementation of biometric technology like Biometric ID Card Project Aadhaar Act implemented in India links almost every part of citizens' personal life to a central state database, it raises serious concerns about whether nations have adequate legal framework for protecting citizens' privacy and security rights. To discuss Aadhaar Act and privacy law further, I'm delighted to welcome Advocate Vicky Shah to this Roundup. Vicky Shah is an advocate, author, speaker, legal advisor, and trainer to police officers in India for cybercrime investigation. He speaks frequently on cybercrime safety awareness and prevention and is author of Are You Protected? The Handbook. Welcome, Advocate Vicky. We are delighted to have you on Risk Roundup.
Thank you, Jashri.
Wonderful. So, Vicky, what is this Aadhaar card and why has India implemented this Aadhaar card?
So, if you see this started in the earlier government regime, somewhere around 2011, 2012, late 2010, it got initiated and it got implemented from 2011-12. And today we are 6 years that this system is already in existence. The sole purpose of this initiative was to have an identity card for each and every individual. It does not give you a citizenship right. It is only to ensure that the person who is claims who is the person who it is. So the identity number is linked to a persona with his demographic details, and it talks about that yes, so and so, that is Vicky Shah, is having another number XYZ, and he is having this as his unique identity. And to back it up, it also captures your biometrics, the fingerprints, as well as the retina, so that there cannot be a duplicate Aadhaar number issued for the same person, Vicky Shah. So if I go and change my name, or I do a facial surgery, or if I try to evade the system, and when I'm giving my biometric and retina, it will flag an error alert saying that the database exists. So they will find out and map it in the backend that this person already has an Aadhaar card with a so-and-so number. He cannot be given two cards. So right now, if you see, there are a lot of challenges in India where one can have two election cards, one can have multiple driving licenses because it is subject of the state. So each state, I can go in another state and I can apply for a driving license, and I will have two driving licenses, one for the state of Maharashtra and one for the state of, say, Rajasthan or maybe Gujarat. So I don't have a single identity document to prove, and I could have a different address on that card, I could have a different address on this card. So Aadhaar basically links and gives me one unique number which proves and ensures that yes, Vicky Shah is so and so. That's it.
So there are challenges in India that require an identification system like that. That is understandable now. But where is this technology developed? The technology, especially not for linking, but the technology for taking the retina scan and fingerprints. Where was this technology developed, and who was behind that?
So the literature, what is available in India, it says that UIDAI was set up as an autonomous body. They initially, there were technology IT firms which were responsible to develop this. We had Mr. Nilkanani who was overdoing it. Then Dr. Pramod Verma was the chief architect of UIDAI. He's the one who has actually set up this particular architecture behind UIDAI and the way it would be structured and initiated and generated. So it's an Indian-based system. It's not developed across or outside India. It's very much Indian designed, Indian architect.
The biometric system as well?
Yes, the
retina scan and the fingerprint, is that developed in India?
Yes, it's in India.
I see. So, I mean, how was this retina scan and fingerprint taken, or how was each individual citizen of India required to get this retina scan and fingerprint? I mean, did everyone go door to door, or how was that collected, this
So,
data?
so we had centers authorized by the government of India. There were post offices, there were banks, there were certain special setup, like government missionaries. They have multiple utilities. So they had set up a booth where a counter was set up, and each individual who would want to have a Aadhaar card need to visit that particular center with their existing set of documents, like PAN card for their date of birth proof, and for address proof it was a passport or election card, or the light bill or the electricity bill. And based on this document, the initial demographic details were captured on Aadhaar, where the name, date of birth, and the address, the document which you submit, that address was displayed on the card. And along with that, they had these machines which were authorized devices which were capturing the biometric, four fingers, two thumbs, and eye retina. And then there was a temporary enrollment number given with a date and time. After that, within 2 weeks, it would get processed. Once it gets stored in the database, you would get a 12-digit unique number. That is a Aadhaar number.
But I mean, I'm thinking the India is such a large country, and if there were so many different centers where citizens would have gone or were able to go and give their fingerprint or retina scan, so many different people and so many different facilities were involved in collecting all that biometric data. Now, what is the guarantee? Were all these people, secured? Was all this data secured? How was this data collected, and under what conditions? What were the different, these biometric data are very sensitive, because how you take the retina scan or fingerprint, whether there was enough light in the room, what kind of light was there. I mean, these are not foolproof technology. So there are a lot of security challenges, because there were so many different number of facilities involved. So what is the credibility of collecting all those biometric data, fingerprints and the retina scan? Because everything could be, there are so many different variables that variables of vulnerability that emerges because of this such a large, massive effort that was done in India.
So I do get your point. The main concern was that these centers which were authorized, were the systems which being used to capture this, were they secure to
Yes.
start with? Because they were the first point of interaction or point of contact where citizens like us used to give our fingerprints and biometric and the retina. So it was make understood to us that the system has just an interface, and the connectivity is from the server, which is secured in a there's a central state of the art facility where the database would directly get linked. There were challenges in initial capture because at times people were not able to give their fingerprint and retina, and it was not getting stored in the database. So they would have to visit the center maybe a second time to give those, and only a temporary enrollment number would be given. Once they are captured with all the required details, then only they were given the Aadhaar card. So initially, if you see, the numbers were very less, but now if you see the statistics which was released last year, the last week of the last year, there are 122 crore people already, 122 crore people already enrolled for Aadhaar. So it's in a way de facto a compulsion that everybody has it. It started as a voluntary initiative initially, that only those who want can go for it. It was not a mandatory. But then there were certain services which were developed in such a way that if you want to avail that, you will have to have Aadhaar. Like, for example, subsidiaries, government welfare schemes, child education for school admissions. They were then marriage registration. They made it compulsory. So in a way, whether you like it or not, one had to go for it. And now it is a part and parcel because they have linked it with the PAN, which is a permanent account number, which is used for the taxation system. So Aadhaar has to be linked with my PAN card if I am a citizen of India and I have to pay their taxes regularly. So it's become a de facto standard that the moment I'm 18 or if I'm started to earn, I need to procure Aadhaar and link it with my PAN card. Recently, we also, last week, in fact, day before yesterday on 7th of Jan, there is a article which says the ICT minister wants the driving license to be linked with Aadhaar so that no one can have multiple driving licenses across the state. one license can be allowed for driving in other states also. Also, nobody can have like for example, offenders generally when they are doing offense and the license are suspended, they go to some other state and procure another license. So that could also stop. So there are benefits which are linked with this. When we talk about security, there are gray areas, but right now, if you see, barring couple of instances where a user voluntarily giving their OTP credentials or otherwise, there is no incident where Aadhaar card has been misused per se. Uh, Also, with the recent Supreme Court judgment in September last year, the biometric authentication is now is disabled, is repealed. The section which was enacted in the Aadhaar Act, Section 57 to be precise, is now no more in force. So any agency cannot do a Aadhaar biometric authentication. They can do OTP and offline mode, which was continuing and existing earlier. And it was very surprising and interesting when Aadhaar was made compulsory to be linked with SIM cards in India. We found a lot of mobile frauds and instances reduced. So, what used to happen earlier is one person procures 4 5 SIM cards in his name, but the SIM card is given to other person for use. So if something goes wrong, then the person whose name the SIM card belongs to, he is answerable and responsible. And there was an initiative where government said to the telecom authority said that everybody needs to link their mobile number with Aadhaar, else the mobile number will get discontinued. And we found a lot of less incidents of mobile frauds and banking frauds because people were very serious that if my number is linked with my Aadhaar and if I give it to be used to someone else, I'll be responsible. So that was acting as a deterrent in its way. So there are a lot of good use cases around Aadhaar. The only issue which was the way it was implemented and made compulsion in a lot of services, gave a rise to the concern of privacy versus fundamental rights, and whether it is secure enough to be, at a large scale spread across. Because most of the fintech regulations and fintech products were based on the KYC and Aadhaar based systems. So, unlike your physical document which is given and misused, your biometric, and also there are very few who know that Aadhaar, when the system was launched, it was a first of its kind system in the world where a user can temporarily disable the biometric authentication and iris authentication through website. So this means that if I have to use my eKYC, I first have to go to the Aadhaar website, get myself authenticated, allow that temporary 10 minutes, 20 minutes of time frame for my biometric to be authenticated, and again disable it after my work is done. So today, even if my OTP is linked, misuse, or my, nobody can misuse my fingerprint. So
Oh, yeah.
unless I am the terminal.
There is nothing foolproof technology. There are many AI systems emerging which can copy any fingerprint. They can.
So just to add on,
So there are nothing is foolproof. I mean, when there is such a large effort at a national level, like you said, there are some really good benefits, and it does bring accountability of individual actions. So there are a lot of benefits. There is no doubt about that. There is a lot of promise. The challenge is that how, whether the country was ready to have something as big as this. And when you do something like this for the first time at a national level, and when you collect the data of every single individual citizen in the country, and then you are bringing so much vulnerability to your country, because if you don't have a proper security framework, if you don't have a proper legal framework, privacy framework, then you are making the entire country vulnerable, because the basic fundamental security is not addressed, because it's not only who collects the data. There are like millions of, probably thousands of people that were involved, thousands of facilities that were involved in collecting data. But were the facilities secured? Were the individuals that were in charge of collecting all that data, did they go through some sort of training to make sure and that they are not copying those data, or they are not collecting data and then selling off some to some hackers or organizations who are interested in getting all the data? So there are, whether the country was ready for this, that is a bigger question. So from your assessment, do you see that the citizens of India are comfortable with this model of ID?
well, there were few challenges because To start with, I only had a resistance. So I enrolled for Aadhaar in 2014 when I was about to get married, and I had to have Aadhaar for registering my marriage. Otherwise, I was also not keen of getting an Aadhaar. Aadhaar and my family members, they already took Aadhaar before 2 years of me. So they enrolled in 2012. I enrolled in 2014. That too because after marriage you need to register your marriage, and for that they required Aadhaar. That's and I practice law and I preach. So if I don't practice myself, I don't have right to preach. So that's the reason I had gone for it. So to address your queries, there are audits which happen before the enrollment centers are authorized. There are certain controls already, UIDI guidelines which are given, which one need to follow before they allow eKYC authentication techniques. And there have been instances where telecom operators, like Airtel was suspended and fined by the government, try and UIDA for not having the eKYC properly. They used to enroll for direct benefit, DBTL benefit, when the person used to go for opening a Airtel's payment bank account without the information and intimation to the person user. So once they used to do a eKYC, it was told that it is done for the opening of account, but they used to also do it for receiving the DBTL benefit. So moment the subsidy amount which used to come in my existing account now gets transferred into the Airtel Payments Bank account, and they were suspended for 3 months, 6 months for that. They were also fined in past. There have been centers which have been removed for violation of certain processes and procedures. So whenever there is a fintech or a payment bank system or a wallet which used to do eKYC, they used to get the demographic details of a particular Aadhaar card holder on their system and device. Now, they are not supposed to store it, but if they store it, then it was a violation of the law. The enrollment centers do not have any record of saving this in their system because it used to connect with the server and it used to get stored in the back. There are also instances where, as you rightly said, the AI technology. So I read an article last week where a fake fingerprint palm was made and it bypassed the biometric.
Yes.
With a higher resolution. So, but what I was referring to when I said biometric is locked, my biometric, even if somebody makes a fingerprint copy of this, okay, he or she cannot use this unless I unlock the biometric from my UIDI system. So there is a function in this system which allows a person to temporarily disable biometric authentication by the user. I can only unlock it with my OTP and my authentication, and it remains unlocked for 10 minutes. Then that point of time in 10 minutes, when I use this, I again get an OTP which I have to give, and then I have to authorize with my biometric. So there are multiple layers of security controls already existing. So I cannot just do a biometric authentication by going to any POS or a terminal and do it immediately. If I don't have a lock system of temporary locking of my biometric, then I can definitely authenticate it with my fingerprint or lookalike or whatever may be. But if I, as a person, am more cautious and alert, and I go to the website, I disable it. Now, this awareness portion of security is something which was missing, maybe from, if I see and see the last 6 years, I have not seen any advertisements or awareness material which talks about these controls which are already in the system. So as a user, I get a confidence, okay, that I can lock my biometric, I can unlock my biometric, I can use only when I need to. I don't have to worry about it. The database is secure. So this awareness piece on security and the controls which are there, you will not find any material on this readily available.
Yes,
It is
that is the one big challenge of this, because when you are trying to take the entire country and all its citizens onto this digital system, and then there is no security education awareness that goes with it, then everyone is vulnerable because they just don't know what they're supposed to do, how to keep them secured. And cyberspace brings so many security challenges. So when you connect such important data, everything about everyone's lives that is connected with this biometric ID system, then you are bringing so much vulnerability. So education and awareness should have been the first step in this, even before you enroll every citizen in India. This education and awareness initiative should have, started way before that. So that is one really big challenge that I see with this implementation.
So again, there are like out of 10, only 3 or 4 people would know that yes, I can go on the site and unlock and lock my biometric. So that is the level of awareness today. As you speak, like I have been speaking on various conferences, also in seminars, and when I speak to people, and I just do a survey question, how many in the room have logged their biometric on UID website, and like they are seeing each other's face, and they're like, is it existing? Is there something like this already present? So that's the kind of response which I get. And these are students in engineering college. These are professionals working in the IT banking space. There are professionals in their general practice, manufacturing industry, trade associations. So a lot of people, and because we are in this domain and in this field, we try to find out the nitty gritties and the FAQs and what is it and how is it and what and how. So because just to understand that, okay, these are the use cases where this is secure, these are the cases where it is not, and then probably try to address a solution which can overcome the challenge. So awareness obviously plays an important role in any domain, if we speak, even if it is law, security, privacy, maybe Aadhaar. In this case, maybe so now they are saying it is secure. They are started recently about that your Aadhaar is safe in a particular data center, which is best of the art and with the known industry standards. However, the user level awareness is still lacking. Typically, because the person who collects Aadhaar, he himself doesn't know what it is and how it works, and the person who gives also is not aware how the system works in the backend. They need not know the system, but they need to know that okay, I as a Aadhaar owner, I have the right to protect its access. I can control it, whom it should be allowed, whom it should not be. They also designed a system called VID, which is known as Virtual ID Number, which is based on Aadhaar. So you can now generate a VID number, which can be shared with the agencies who require to authenticate you. In the backend, this VID is linked with your Aadhaar number, but your Aadhaar number is not supposed to be disclosed now. This system got implemented last July, so we're talking about almost a year back. But there are agencies which have already collected your Aadhaar in a physical form, a photocopy of it, self-attested. They don't take care or they don't take precautions to secure this and store it in an encrypted form. Like if you do Aadhaar search on Google, you will find certain universities and certain companies. They take this number, the Aadhaar copy from the employees for employment purpose or otherwise, and this is scanned and stored on their website, web portal. So you can't blame the Aadhaar system for this kind of lacuna. It is the agency which is hosting this data. After scanning, it is the duty of that controller to protect the data. Aadhaar has nothing to do with it.
That's the point, that was the whole framework defined properly, where all these things put into the framework, that what the entities who are collecting the data, what are they supposed to do, where there's some clear guidelines, where what was the accountability put into this framework and structure. And how do we know that when you are trying to connect all of this with the biometric ID system, and everything is connected, where you go, what you do, what you buy, what kind of phone you have, or where you are traveling, what train you are taking, how you're buying tickets, and everything is connected to that, or even plane ticket, anything. So when all of this data is collected, who owns that data and who is controlling the data, that it doesn't go into the wrong hands, or even the politicians, that they are not using it for their personal political agenda, and that there is no unauthorized surveillance, or there is no mass surveillance going on of all the citizens. Who is in charge of that?
So basically, I'll just correct. There is nothing like this which is happening with this system right now. This system is not linking to your travel, your ticket, your flight. It is not. It is linking to your bank accounts because you need to receive some subsidy and benefit. There is a mapper service where, suppose if you have three saving accounts and you want to receive a particular benefit in only one of the accounts, then you need to link Aadhaar to that particular account. So
Let
it
me
is.
let me interrupt here. When the data is collected, all the data is available in a central, facility wherever that is in India. All someone has to do is use an AI system, machine learning system, or deep learning system to be able to collect all this intelligence. The data is there, the information is there. The question is only whether there is an initiative or effort by someone to collect the intelligence from that. How do we know nobody is collecting that intelligence?
So see, that is a gray area unless you know some incidents about where exactly it is being used. It is still to be examined or investigated. What we are discussing right now is the way. Suppose like I have a Aadhaar number. What are the risks which are when I leak it publicly, and what are the safeguards I have to ensure I have not been affected by this particular number getting disclosed? Because as an individual, about a person, this card is more about the identity of a person and the demographic details, which is your name, your date of birth, your address. Now, we have a system in our country where election database is publicly available, even otherwise, whether you have Aadhaar or passport or otherwise. You being a citizen staying in a particular locality, this is your constituency, you vote from this area and you stay in this address. This information is available in public even now as we speak. Okay, so my address, my name, and my constituency where I'm going to vote is already public record and on the election commission's website. Now Aadhaar has this information with one number, and it has my biometric and my retina, that is my fingerprints and retina. Now whether this number by giving just automatically my Aadhaar and my retina goes there, no, the answer is no, it doesn't go there. But when we talk about Aadhaar being used in bank system, in financial system, in linking with PAN, in linking with driving license, in linking with mobile, then we know that yes, one number of one person with so many services. Now that surveillance or monitoring aspect, when we talk about, it can be used by the intelligence system or the law enforcement for their particular work, but not readily available to public at large. Secondly, the operators or the service providers, there are authentication agencies, there are sub AUA, KUA, there are service providers. They need this database service to verify their existing service. Like for example, I'm a businessman. I have a task of onboarding clients and customers to my system. If I use this Aadhaar based system, I can reduce my operational cost and I can have a verified database which is maintained by the government of India, which I can rely upon because those are the agencies authorized to issue such numbers. Otherwise, suppose if somebody comes with a photo card and an original document with me, now that original document appears to be original. Whether it is fabricated, forged, I am not competent to analyze and comment on that. So my good will judgment only will prevail and say that yes, whatever document photocopy has been brought and the original passport or Aadhaar or PAN, the card which is along with it, reasonably sounds to be okay and true, and if the details are matching, and I authenticate a person, okay, that this person is Vicky Shah with this identity. So there is a human involvement in this case. Now, when we talk about system like Aadhaar, which reduces your verification aspect because you don't know whether this is the same texture passport paper or a pen card, plastic PVC cards which are there, or it is from the same material or the authorized agency only printed it and not somebody has duplicated or counterfeited it. We are not competent as a person sitting on the other side who do verify this. So when Aadhaar comes and when the biometric is done, the biometric verification is done with the central system lying with the government of India and secure system. As of now, there is no incident, breach incident, or any other leak information per se, which is publicly otherwise or reported and available. So we assume it is a system which is reasonably correct at this point of time as we speak, and it may be continuously being monitored and being improved as the latest threats are being faced. Now the question comes whether the user is educated enough or aware enough whether he can or she can log their biometric for authentication or not. Now that question does not arise any further because that section itself is scrapped. So now, as on date in India, what we discussed a few months back and what we are discussing today, biometric authentication is completely stopped. The database is there, system is already designed. So what is being done by the government? They are regulating the laws where they are making this Aadhaar to be linked with your license, your accounts, your taxation systems, so that in a way, again, everything will become streamlined and more regulated. We are getting a personal data protection bill, which is in the draft stage, about to get enacted in the next session, maybe the monsoon session of Parliament, or we are also having election this year, so maybe after that. But once that laws comes into picture, existing IT Act is having provisions. Aadhaar Act itself has certain penal provisions as well as accountability provisions. So we are going towards a regulated regime. We already had this in the covered under the IT Act about protection of personal data and failure for protection of consumer data. So we had 43A in the IT Act, which was very clear about sensitive personal data, and any body corporate, if they found to violate any data which is not protected by them and reasonable securities are not maintained by them, then they would be penalized up to the tune of 5 crores and above. So we already have a law in place at this point of time as we speak. The personal data protection bill will have more accountability because the user can then have the right for erasure, right to be forgotten, right to be regulated, right to correct their data, and so on. So we are in a stage as a country which is evolving in the data protection regime. We are going to have a full-fledged data protection bill. In the lack of it, existing acts already address it, but personal data protection bill will give more powers to the data subject, the users like us, which was not otherwise available. Under the IT Act, I could sue a company if something goes wrong with my data. By then I can claim the damages from the company. But under the personal data protection bill, I can have a significant role, and I can, as a data subject, I have the right to challenge the data fiduciary, challenge the data controller, data processor, what kind of data they are accessing, how they are using it, whether they collected my data for a particular purpose, are they using only for that, or some other purpose which was not conveyed to me. So all these challenges are getting addressed. It's just a matter of time when we have this law enacted in the next session or otherwise, and things will move. So, like today, we are almost 19 years old when we talk about Information Technology Act. The Parent Act came in 2000. It got amended in 2008. Then there were subsequent rules which came right from 2000 till 2016. So we had rules which kept on coming as and when we saw the development and necessity. So the IT Act, though the major act got amendment only twice, but there were a lot of rules and regulations which were part of the central government act which kept on coming from 2012 onwards and 3 onwards. So at this point of time, when we say we have a court, we have a forum where any issue of data regulation or otherwise can be heard, can be discussed, and we could get a judgment. In terms of controls and security, we have certain computer emergency response team in India which have empaneled certain companies as auditors which go under certain standards. They are authorized and they audit the systems and the controllers and the data processors. So we have that accountability also, that okay, you can do yourself audited with the government standards, and if you are found to be certified with them, then you are assume to have reasonable security practices from that point of time, and then you can allow and use certain services. So
Yes,
overall, we have systems in place. It's just that right things have to be connected now and more streamlined. It requires more methodical planning and streamlining of all the activities which are now in segregation.
so this is a positive development, that at least personal data protection, there is going to be a regulation for the personal data, and which is a positive step. But what you said about that, the government now is not going to take anyone's biometric data, that means retina scan or fingerprint, but everybody is already collected. So what happens to all the data, biometric data that is already there? What is going to
So
happen to that?
So what I meant to say was that currently, because the Supreme Court of India has repealed the Section 57 of the Aadhaar Act, which talks about the biometric authentication, the biometric details cannot be used to authenticate a user. The database, there is nothing which on the in the judgment which talks about what can be done about this data which is collected by the government of India. If there is a rule which says that okay, this has to be shredded and deleted and erased, then the entire biometric database, the fingerprints and the retina needs to be erased if that comes into picture. Till that point of time, it is not supposed to be erased at this point of time. Only thing is you should not authenticate a person using his biometric details. That is what the Supreme Court
But
judgment currently.
then what is the purpose of having the data? Biometric data is for authentication and access, right? I mean, if that is not the role of, then why the country has to collect the data of all its citizens? For what purpose?
So it already collected. You cannot do something which is already done, right? You can't undo the things which are already done. Now in future, once you have a regulated regime which will talk about the, maybe there would be certain deliberations at the appropriate forum of the government where they do POC about how this biometric data, what is already collected, can be used and ensure it is not being misused. Then only we'll know, because this is not currently in any of the discussion agendas.
That,
Right now,
that seems really fishy, because see, I mean, if the government is saying, Supreme Court is saying that this data, biometric data, cannot be used for authentication. So what is that going to be used for? Is that data going to be used for mass surveillance? Because
uh,
that seems like a
cannot be used to. There are instances where even the law enforcement have asked for other data from UIDA, and UIDA has not given that data even to map the criminal or to check the records. So there have been instances in the court where they have gone and requested the court that they need permission from the UIDA to be accessing certain biometric database to compare with the criminal database system, but they have not been given permission also. So you can't 100% and conclusively say it's going to a surveillance state. And what Supreme Court says is that unless you bring certain changes in your regulatory and the enforcement and the way it is being used, you can't do the biometric authentication. It does not say that you can not use this database at all, or you can use this database for some other purpose. So right now, the authentication system is at stop. I cannot go and give my biometric to authenticate myself because that is stopped by law at this point in time. But what happens to my data which is already stored with them? Once my personal data protection bill comes, I will have the right to get it removed from the database.
Nothing gets removed ever. Nothing ever gets removed. Once it's collected, it always stays. And the other challenge is that UIDAI is both the regulator and custodian of data. How can that be an effective system?
So they are not the regulator per se. They are the entire Aadhaar distribution, issuance, maintenance is by UIDAI. There is a law which regulates it. There is a government which is backing it because there are services which are linked to it. So UIDAI is not a regulator. It's a body which is appointed and designed to issue this system of unique identity to the end users, which is the customers and the citizens. A regulator is always the government because they are the ones who make laws and regulations to ensure that existing system fit within the regime. UIDAI is responsible more for the entire ecosystem because they come with the best practices, they come with the audit criteria, they come with the standards what needs to be followed. If we see overall, this is the only system which possibly exists in the entire world where so much of data, so much of biometric information collected of the citizens used for welfare schemes, benefit schemes. And now they have also decided, with the new changes in the amendments of the other act, which was introduced last week, that the minor data which is collected by them, once the minor becomes major, that is 18 years of age, then he will, have the, so his data should not be used otherwise. So there are things which we cannot say it's unplanned or unthought. The main purpose of this was to ensure a lot of redundant data gets reduced. There were times when people used to claim multiple benefits, but because of this system in place, that it was reduced, that it helped government to save a lot of cost, lot of money, which could be used for other initiatives and other projects. So there are benefits of this system, and country like India, where it's huge, highly populated and huge, it's a data asset world today. The entire world looks to India as a data economy because we have more data than anybody possibly has. So keeping that in mind, having the data protection law, existing other rules, the IT Act, all combined, we have a reasonable system in place right now to address the issues. There could be some implementation challenge. Maybe they need to do more use case test or POCs before actually something is getting implemented full fledged, which I also agree. But then they are already doing certain things after a particular thought process. You can't plan everything and anything on day one. It evolves as you grow.
No, but for something as serious as this system, it should have been even planned before the system was implemented, before the system was designed. This is that critical because it puts the entire security of the country, at risk. And when Aadhaar is seeded into every database, it's becoming like a bridge to all these data silos, and it will allow anyone with access to information to also be able to define or reconstruct a profile of anyone's life. I mean, nothing is now off the table. Anyone who has access to the data can create a profile of anyone that is in the system, would be able to tag them where they are going. And it's not just within India, outside India, where they go, what they do. We have created a security nightmare for all the Indian citizens.
I don't agree. I don't agree at all. See, you also are in US. You have a system. You have a SSN number which gives you entire history, geography of you.
And
Then applicability is different.
doesn't collect our biometric data.
Yeah, agree. It doesn't collect your biometric data, but you can still be geographically and historically be seen, monitored about all your, taxation, your insurances, your point.
No, social security number has huge flaws, no doubt about that. But here that was designed long time back. Again, no defense of that. But
No, I'm not saying about defense. See, when we are discussing something today, and when you say that this was not thought of, I don't agree. There is a procedure always there which is thought about. There is a way you perceive it. There is the interpretation is different. The way we perceive is different. Why Aadhaar and what is Aadhaar for, and why we are so okay. Yes, biometric information is collected. The biometric information, if so far it is collected, and it is the responsibility of the UID and the government to protect it. If it is not, then they are responsible for it. Now they are also accountable for it. When we say that it is captured and it is being used, is there any existing case where we have found it to be misused? Is there a particular case where somebody goes to a police station saying, oh, I had a Aadhaar, this is my biometric, somebody used my biometric to do some authentication and I have not done so? Please investigate. There is no such incident as of now, as on date it has happened. So unless to investigate, to debate or to discuss whether it is foolproof system or not, there should be some precedent at least. The database which is captured, which earlier, if you see, when it got initially launched, there were a lot of issues about the enrollment centers, and they corrected it. They disabled those centers. We also saw Aadhaar card issued in the name of mobile phone, Aadhaar card issued in the name of a coriander leaf. There were issues in the past. We have seen in the stories that there were goof ups, there were mistakes, but then they have rectified it. But there was no biometric collected for those. So biometric collection, preservation, and we are right now talking about, as we speak, there is no system foolproof in this world, and there will never be one.
True.
The only system which is secure is not connected in the world. If I have to make myself secure, I just have to be disconnected with the net. Then only I can say that I'm secure. Otherwise, even my phone, when it is in switch off mode, it takes private. I mean, there's no privacy when I use my phone. They track me, they locate me. So that is more a threat than Aadhaar being a threat, because my movements, my position today, everything is through my cell phone, which is a part and parcel of my life. I live two lives today. I have one life, physical life, and one is my mobile life. So my phone knows more about me than I would be knowing about myself. Then we people use health trackers, Fitbits. We give a lot of personal health information in the system. So that is another challenge where user is voluntarily giving it. Now, when we talk about particular system of Aadhaar and biometric collection of it, well, maybe some regulator or a person from UIDI will give a right approach or answer on this. But if you ask me as a practicing lawyer or as a person professionally, that do I worry about my data being secure? Yes, I do. But then I have sense of confidence as at this point of time, because the existing system which I've been using since last 4 years, since I have the Aadhaar card since 2014, I have not seen any abnormal OTP request generated for my Aadhaar number. Maybe I would be the exception because I do more alert and more precaution. Instances where I have the clients also where I have been interacting in the last 4 years, we have seen bank frauds, we have seen the KYC fraud with physical form of it, but we have not come across any case where a Aadhaar biometric or otherwise that has been misused and then authentication is taken place and then there is a fraud. So if you see the statistics of the Crime Record Bureau or otherwise, there is no case as of now, as on date, and I don't deny it will not be in future. It may happen, but when it happens, then only we can investigate and do a introspection about, okay, this has happened because of XYZ, and then we need to find out how and what went wrong there. If a agency who is authorized and is a link between the user and the system, if there is something wrong in that system, then the system is responsible. You can't say the architecture is wrong, right? The control, like for example, I appoint a watchman. A watchman is appointed to ensure that he does not allow unauthorized people in the physical premise, but the watchman sleeps. He's not doing his duty. I can't blame the system is flawed. I have to blame the person who is responsible for that particular thing. So in the ecosystem of my Aadhaar environment or architecture, if my enrollment centers, if I were the government, if I were the UIDI, I would ensure that this particular center, before it given the connectivity, I would do a thorough audit, ensure that its security standards are maintained at par, at the level of military standards, at least, and then I would allow the person to get a link with my database, otherwise not. So I'm sure they would be doing something which we are not known also, because sometimes we are not supposed to know most of the things. But assuming and having confidence in the system, yes, it is at least something is better than nothing. And there is no incidence as of now of biometric violation or authentication. If I have a case or a precedent, then probably I could have spoken more in detail after going through it about what happened, where the things went wrong. But right now, so the question about biometric misuse is something which is it is a concern, yes, but nothing to worry at this point of time. Coming to the surveillance aspect, so already we have, so most of the countries have a law in place to have surveillance of most of the things. Like every email of your US which goes out of the country is being monitored by your law enforcement. Similarly, we have agencies in our country which does monitoring of those. They have encryption keys, decryption keys as well. So at the cost of national security, privacy is not there. I mean,
Is that
nothing is private.
you seem very confident in the system? Is that how all Indians feel? Do they feel very confident about the system?
I cannot say about all India, but if you ask me, I would give maybe 70-75%. Yes, we need a 25% improvement. We are 75% reasonable with whatever existing, environment, people, systems, profiles, architecture, laws. So we are 70-75% reasonable. There is always a scope of improvement. So that 25-30% is something which will only the time will tell us how do we go in that direction.
Sure.
And seeing the entire Aadhaar system as such, there are a lot of benefits if rightly used and rightly implemented. It saves a lot of cost. It saves a lot of time. In fact, we've also seen where there are people, even after they are dead, they claim a lot of benefits
Yeah.
out of the schemes. And Aadhaar actually stopped it
Sure.
because
Each technology, each system brings us promise as well as perils. So there are rewards and there are risks. So looking at overall all the risks that are emerging, what illegal issues do you see emerging from the Aadhaar Act in the coming years?
Illegal issues per se only when the agencies who are the link between the citizen and the government, if they play something fall, then there is a risk because they have equal connectivity with the system. So I may see somebody's name and photo is there, but biometrics are different. They can do something of that sort because they are the ones who allow that connectivity. When the authorization is done, but then it becomes difficult as the systems are more tighter. So earlier the physical documentation was given. Now they are capturing the original identity before issuing Aadhaar. So they have found out solutions for that. Maybe a name is different, then due to aging, and there are certain professions, occupation where your fingerprints disappear after a few years of service, like a person working in a chemical plant or a factory where he's doing hardcore efforts with the like a machinery equipment and typical services where the fingerprints can also get eradicated. So that's where iris comes into picture. And there may be times when because of some other reasons, due to maybe some accident, otherwise you do not have your when you gave Aadhaar you had your 5 fingers, but then after a few years there were some unwanted unanticipated accidents where you lost your fingers. Then in such cases the biometric data is defunct. So whether this database now remains relevant and active every uh, correct in its true spirit is what needs to be checked. That's what I say.
So, what would you like to tell Indians about their privacy and security rights based in this, as far as the Aadhaar Act is concerned?
So, as far as Aadhaar is concerned, first and foremost, every citizen should go to the website of UIDI, get their own biometric locked if it is not already locked. So, the system is not by design locked. It is the user has to go on the site and request for locking their biometric authentication. So if they do that, at least even if their fingerprints or iris gets captured by somebody, they cannot be misused without they themselves being present or getting it unlocked by themselves. Because they have a password, they get a OTP based on the mobile number. So there is a sense of control already in place. Second, Aadhaar linking with certain services where it is required, it is good for the users themselves. Certain places it is not, and typically there is a after the Supreme Court judgment, the banks and the telecom cannot ask you for Aadhaar. If they ask, they can be penalized as well as punished. So ensure that they ask you for other alternate documents for your offline KYC authentication. And if you are supposed to give your Aadhaar number for that, ensure you do a proper attestation in the offline mode so that that document cannot be used for other purpose other than for the purpose which you are giving it. From the confidence point of view in the system, as this point of time as we speak, there is no incident where biometric misuse is observed. So I can say that yes, you can be rest assured. Second, if there is a physical offline misuse, then there is IT Act under which you can claim your remedy. You can seek damages and compensation. So we have a law in place. Then there are services like don't give your
It's 21 hours
to any agencies, private agencies when they ask. Only for visa purposes or genuine requirements, try and give it and ask the purpose and the reason whoever asks you for a biometric. I have seen there are certain companies and systems, like obviously when you work with a company, they do your biometric attendance. So you have to give it because you are supposed to be there. Now, even the biometric can be leaked from that particular database. Why we talk about Aadhaar? So it could be as low as that. But then that company should be having that enough security controls and measures. When you leave that company as you're no more an employee, then you try to request that admin to remove your database or your fingerprints at least. Let the attendance record be there, but your biometric captured image should be deleted from the database so that nobody can misuse your attendance after you leave the system. Generally, they deactivate the employee ID and your system gets stopped. They do not recognize you, but still the biometric is captured in the database. What about that? Nobody thinks on those lines of data erasure, or there might be no policy for a company to erase the biometric which is captured of an employee who has left the company, and after a year or 6 months they should be erasing it. So some improvement on this lines also is expected. And I would not say it's 100% secure system. No system in the world is 100%. But now that there is no biometric authentication to be submitted and given, you can be rest assured that nobody can give you a dummy or a duplicate data for capturing your biometrics till the next instructions which we will have from the regulators or the government or the court. And whatever documentation is used for any authentication, always write the purpose on that particular documentation as to why you are giving it and for what purpose, so that it cannot be reused again by somebody else.
Fair enough. No, that's a good suggestion and good advice for all the Indian citizens. So, thank you so much, Vicky, for participating in Risk Roundup today. We appreciate your thoughtful insight on the Aadhaar Act and the complex challenges, all security, privacy, and legal challenges that it brings to all the citizens of India. And our global viewers and listeners will benefit tremendously from the information you provided on the world's largest implementation of this biometric project. I mean, it is the world's largest biometric project, so there are going to be understandably a lot of challenges, that would emerge with that when something is done for the first time. It brings, quite a few unknowns that any country needs to figure out. So even if a single decision maker can understand the complex privacy and security challenges and the global implications that would emerge based on the implementation of this system, because it's not going to end just with India. It's going to probably many other countries will also implement similar systems, or try to do something different, but they all can learn a lot from what India has gone through. It's both in the promise as well as priorities, risk and reward. So this Risk Roundup dialogue has been of service, and we thank you for that.
In fact, we have something called as UPI, Unified Payment Interface, which is the new way of payments in India, the most secured way to do payments in India, and a very foolproof. So the world is actually trying to imitate India now. So it's a global first.
Yes,
Maybe
it's first.
some on that line also. If you are aware of UPI, it's a very good system of making bank payments which are safe, secure. It's a very good initiative which is already existing from 2 years now.
Good, wonderful. So, Risk Roundup, a global initiative launched by Risk Group, is a security risk reporting for risk emerging from existing and emerging technologies, technology convergence, and transformation happening across cyberspace, geospace, and space. We at Risk Group believe that risk management, security, and peace, they walk together hand in hand. Though security is related to management of threats and peace to the management of conflict, risk management is related to management of security vulnerabilities as well as management of conflict. It is not possible to conceive any one of the three without the existence of the other two. All three concepts feed into each other. We believe that the security we build for ourselves is precarious and uncertain until it is secure for everyone across nations. Tradition becomes our security. So if we build a culture of managing risk effectively, it will lead us to security, and security will lead us to peace. Let's manage the existing and emerging risks together. For more information on the Risk Roundups, to watch the Risk Roundup webcast or hear the Risk Roundup podcast, please go to riskgroupllc.com and do not forget to subscribe and share. Until next time, I'm Jayashree, host of Risk Roundup, signing off. See you next time. Thank you.